Alright, hello there. This is gonna be my first video submission for Khan Academy's talent search. First off, hats off to you guys and especially to Sal Khan. You guys are doing an amazing job at Khan Academy in trying to democratize education and bringing it to the masses. So today I'm going to be talking about the process of tooth development. In other words, odontogenesis. So let me write down the word for you, odontogenesis. Let me try to break down the word for you, odonto and genesis. Odonto, which means teeth or tooth, and genesis, as you know, the birth or the beginning. So basically, odontogenesis is the birth of a teeth, of how a teeth develops. So let me go ahead and erase that. So I'll start off by drawing the different parts of the tooth structure so it'll be easier to understand the process of development of the teeth. So now that I've got the tooth structure drawn out, I'll be labeling them one by one. This structure covering the crown of the tooth, a thin layer, is the hardest structure in the entire body. It's called the enamel. So because it's really hard, we need something resilient underneath it so that the tooth doesn't fracture. So for that we have the dentin. Next, in the center of the tooth we have the pulp, which is the only soft tissue in the entire tooth structure. It contains blood vessels, which provides nutrition, and it contains the nerves, because of which you get sensation. The rest of the tooth structure don't have any nerves at all. Just as you have a thin layer of enamel covering the crown, so also at the root we have a thin layer of tooth structure which is called the cementum. Now over here we have the bony socket, which is called the alveolar bone. Now the tooth is attached to the bony socket, the alveolar bone, with these fibers which connect the alveolar bone to the cementum. They are called the periodontal ligament. So these three structures, they are the supporting structures. Okay, now what we need to know here as well is that enamel is the only structure which is derived from the germ layer called ectoderm. The rest of the tooth structures, they are all derived from something called the ectomesenchyme. Okay, so now let me put this away. Okay, so we have a 30 days old embryo photo over here. Let's take a look at this word called stomodium, which is the primitive oral cavity where the mouth is going to be. Stomo is basically just an orifice, an opening. So now when you look at the maxillary prominence, the upper jaw, which is going to fuse later on to form the upper jaw. Then you have the mandibular prominence, the part over here, which forms the lower jaw. So now let's cut through the mid-sagittal section of this embryo and see what we can see in between. So now I'll draw through the mid-sagittal section of the embryo we saw just now. So this will be the future maxilla. And over here, this will be the future mandible. And here will be the future tongue. And this will be the stomodium, the primitive oral cavity. Now, so what happens at around the 6th week, the embryo shows thickening of its oral epithelium over here, and is now called as primary epithelial band. And right underneath that you have the ectomesenchyme, which condenses. So this primary epithelial band, it proliferates in the form of a horseshoe shape, which is going to be the future dental arches, the maxillary dental arch and the mandibular dental arch. So this primary epithelial band continues to grow downwards and invading into the ectomesenchyme, and so as it grows at around the 7th week, which I've used a different shade of pink, it grows deeper in the form of, one will be the vestibular lamina, and the other would be the dental lamina. Now the vestibular lamina it grows deeper, and then it forms the depression between the teeth and the cheeks, or the teeth and the lips in front. Okay, so now we'll concern ourselves more with the dental lamina, because that's where tooth is going to be formed from. So here we have the dental lamina. As it grows downwards, it invaginates into the ectomesenchyme. The ectomesenchyme around it condenses. So as the ectomesenchyme, so we have the couple of stages here. The first will be the bud stage, next will be the cap stage. So as it progresses, the ectomesenchyme condenses and differentiates into two types of cells. One will form with the dental papilla seen over here, and the next will be the dental follicle or the dental sac. So the dental follicle, dental sac, develops into the cementum. Basically, it develops into the supporting structures of the teeth, the alveolar bone, and the third one would be the periodontal ligament. Okay. Then you have the dental papilla, which forms the middle part of the teeth, the dentin and the pulp. And then we have the enamel organ, which obviously will form the enamel. So we have the bud stage, then we have the cap stage. So let's take a closer look at the cap stage below here. So here in the cap stage, we see the outer enamel epithelium, which is part of the enamel organ, which are cuboidal cells. And then we have the inner enamel epithelium, which is slightly taller in size and shape. They are columnar cells. Next we have these cells in the middle, which are polygonal in shape, but later they become star shaped, and hence they are called the stellate reticulum. So now let's look at the final stage, which is the bell stage over here. So during the bell stage, the final shape of the tooth is being formed. Then we see the succedaneous dental lamina. So the succedaneous dental lamina forms the successors, that is the permanent tooth bud. And then during the late bud stage, the dental lamina detaches from the tooth germ. Also during the bud stage, a new layer of cells, which is a flattened layer of cells, begins to form in between the stratum intermedium and the inner enamel epithelium. It's called the stratum intermedium. Take a closer look at the differentiation. So during the late bud stage, the inner enamel epithelium receives signals to transform and differentiate into the pre-ameloblast, which in turn will form the ameloblast later on. The ameloblasts are the cells which form the enamel, and then once these pre-ameloblasts form, these pre-ameloblasts induce the cells of the dental papilla over here shown in orange to form pre-odontoblast, and then which goes on to form odontoblast. And then the odontoblasts finally lay down the dentin, which is seen in yellow on the right hand side over here. So once the first layer of dentin has been laid down, the odontoblast induce the pre-ameloblast to become differentiate into ameloblast, which lays down the first layer of enamel as shown in light blue over here. So this process of deposition of dentin first and then the enamel later continues layer by layer until the tooth crown is formed to the cervical layer. Another thing we notice over here is that the outer enamel epithelium, which are cuboidal, they become more and more flattened, and they are thrown into folds and papilla so that the nutrition, the blood vessels from the follicle may enter and provide nutrition to the ameloblast, which have a high metabolic requirement over here. At the same time, these stellate reticulum cells shown in green over here, they collapse as well to shorten the distance between the dental follicle out there and the ameloblast, which require a lot of nutrition. So not shown here is the outer and inner enamel epithelium. They are continuous. So this portion is called cervical loop, which goes on to form the root sheath. So with this, I'd like to continue my first video, the development of the tooth crown.